Okay, our presentation is on the MotivAider device and functional communication training created by Megan, Andrea, Emma, Eric, and Diane. Introduction. The purpose of this training is to teach you about the principles of functional communication and the MotivAider device, which will be explained in detail later on. On the next slide will be a scenario from an outside provider who had a similar widespread problem.
Let's go. Hey, that's very naughty, Bria. Sharing. Let's go. Let's go.
All right, this is a video shared by an outside provider that highlights the types of maladaptive behaviors that we see every day in our classrooms. Functional communication training background. Functional communication training is a well-established treatment for problem behaviors for persons with autism or intellectual disability. This treatment utilizes differential reinforcement by teaching and reinforcing appropriate functional language rather than problem behavior. FCT is easily implemented across environments and age ranges. Functional communication is a differential reinforcement procedure in which an individual is taught an alternative response that results in the same class of reinforcement identified as maintaining problem behavior. Functional communication continued. First, you need to identify what the function of the behavior is. Then you need to identify an appropriate alternative response and to be sure that it is in the child's repertoire. Third, you need to not honor any inappropriate requests. And finally, when an inappropriate request occurs, prompt and reinforce the appropriate alternative response. Here's an example. So, Johnny is minimally verbal and steals toys from his peers in order to gain access to the item. Gaining access to the item is the function of his behavior. We then need to identify an appropriate alternative response. So instead, Johnny should point to the toy and say, toy. This alternative response acts as the same, is the same function as his inappropriate behavior. And we are not going to honor any inappropriate requests. So Johnny will not be allowed to have a toy when he takes it without asking. And when Johnny takes toys without asking, he is going to be prompted to point and say toy, and then after that, he will receive the toy. MotivAider device description. The MotivAider device is a handheld device that vibrates and/or flashes at a predetermined fixed or variable interval. The device can be used in a variety of ways, including self-monitoring for both clients and staff. And behaviors targeted in the literature include on-task behavior and NCR praise. The device can be clipped onto clothing for easy access, and it can be programmed to vibrate at various interval settings depending on need. Procedure. The lead teacher will turn on the MotivAider during free play time, and it will be shut off when that free play time has ended. In this protocol, the MotivAider will be initially set at 2-minute intervals to prompt staff to verbally reinforce appropriate turn-taking. All inappropriate turn-taking behaviors will be recorded by staff using student-specific color-coded clickers. And for the purpose of the overall setting of the school, the lead teacher will be the only one who gets a MotivAider device. The clicker counters are handheld devices that the staff will be responsible for tracking inappropriate turn-taking behaviors for 3 to 4 students. And the clickers will be attached to a clip that students can wear on their clothing. And after this PowerPoint has concluded, there'll be modeling and role-playing to make sure staff fully understand the principles and procedures behind the MotivAider and functional communication training, so the intervention is consistent across the school. Steps for classroom and school-wide implementation. So at the beginning of the day, the lead teacher checks their MotivAider to make sure it is running properly. The lead teacher will turn on the motivator on and off depending on the activities during the day, and it should be on during free play activities only. Staff will find out their assigned students for the day and locate their color-coded clicker. Only the teacher will have the motivator, and during free play, the lead teacher will prompt the assisting staff to encourage appropriate turn-taking each time the device goes off. A frequency count will be taken with the color-coded clickers for each student throughout the day. Staff will be responsible for the frequency counts of 1 to 4 students per day. Data sheets will be turned into the BCBA at the end of each school week. Data collection. On the data sheets provided, you will write each student's name, record the number of inappropriate turn-taking behaviors for each student using the color-coded clickers, record each student's frequency in the data sheet at the end of the day, and the lead teacher is responsible for giving the data sheets to the trainers at each follow-up training at the end of the week. Here is the data sheet. Each sheet contains the teacher's name, classroom number, week, day, and an operational definition of inappropriate turn-taking. Follow-up training. There will be 6 follow-up trainings that take place after this initial training. The meetings will focus on the implementation of the intervention as a whole, and a portion of the meetings will be dedicated to discussing specific classroom situations and using this intervention with their students. And additionally, each follow-up training will contain 1 quiz on MotivAider and FCT principles. Final tips. Implementing FCT should increase language skills for all students. As inappropriate turn-taking behaviors decrease, the motivator intervals will be increased systematically until the device can be faded out of the classroom. If inappropriate behaviors continue to persist, the BCBA and speech pathologists will develop treatment plans on an as-needed basis. And good luck. Just remember to stay cool, calm, and collective, and ask questions when needed.